Yes, please. Okay. Good evening, everyone. December 3rd, 2024. Welcome Easton Historic Commission meeting. Let's open the meeting. Wayne, if you could read us our internet rules.
Yes, this meeting will be held on the Zoom platform. One of the significant differences is that folks need to, hold on, I see Mickey, identify themselves when making motions, seconds, and voting. And members of the public attending can use the raise hand function if they want to comment. And folks with relevant agenda items would be admitted at that time to participate in the meeting as full panelists. And that's essentially a quick overview of the Zoom platform meeting instructions.
Thank you, Wayne. And if we could, our alternates as voting members.
Okay, so we would need a motion and a second for that, and we also have to do a roll call attendance.
Yep. Okay.
I'll do a motion to have our two alternates be voting.
Thank you. Motion. Need a second, please.
Second.
Okay. Motion's and seconded for Bob and Mickey. All in favor? Hurley, aye.
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 I assume that's a unanimous aye everywhere, Wayne.
Yep.
Yes. And then, so for folks talking over each other, would it be helpful, Tim, I know you're having video issues, for me to like call on people? Would that sort of help things go easier?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay, we can,
They'll go quick either way, so yeah.
Okay, groovy. And then we do need to do attendance also, roll call attendance.
Curly.
Yep, thank you. Yep. You're here. Ventresco.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Okay, and who next? Marsh.
Present.
Okay, Hans.
Here.
And then Wolf.
Here.
Thank you. And Bishop. Hey, Bob, if you could let us know you're here.
Hold up sign. Hold up.
Bishop here. I'm sorry. I didn't hear
Thank you. Thanks. All right. And Tim, do you have a copy of the agenda handy?
I'm trying to get it right now, Wayne. Go ahead, start it off if you could, please.
Oh, sure thing. Yeah, so next up is the 464 Foundry Street demolition review application. The commission may remember that this was before the group in 2019. No action was taken by the owner at that time. It's under new owner, so they're back with the demolition review application. I see in the waiting room Jeff Benavides, who I believe is from the applicant. Let me promote him to panelist. If I got that right. There we go.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. And I would like to note for the record that Mickey Wolf is recusing herself from deliberation, consideration, or voting on this item and has removed herself from the discussion.
Okay. I think we may as well just give a quick history here. The previous owner came in front of us for a demolition permit, which we extended to him. It expired over the course of a year from that date. So the applicant is back in front of us just to, I guess, not extend it, but to, I guess, to issue a new one, basically.
Yeah, to reapply.
Yeah, reapply, and
yeah.
And so we were allowing this to be torn down, over a year ago. We gave permission, so.
Yeah, the determination was not historically significant at that time.
Right.
And so I don't know if it would be helpful to have a quick refresher for the board
I think that would be a good idea, Wayne.
All right, let me see if you'll all bear with me. You know how me and my technical issues
We
are
have a new member.
not always friends. All right, please bear with me, and I'm going to do a share screen. And there's that. Share. Folks can see that, I assume?
Yes.
All right. And then, so here's the application, the demolition review application from the Haynes Group for demolition review for 464 Foundry Street. The application is complete, received, and these are photos which might jog folks' memory of the structure that still remains down at 464 Foundry. And they've asked to waive the fee. And then this is the determination from the Historical Commission back in 2019.
Right. Anyone? Any discussion?
No, unless it was a Christmas miracle, this definitely didn't get better over the last year. So
I think it now has an X on it to mark the spot.
I'd like to move this forward.
Yep.
So did I hear a motion from Ventresco to find the structure not historically significant?
Correct.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Why don't you call us out, Wayne?
Oh, of course, yeah. And to do that, I've got to stop screen sharing. Well, you know what? I can't figure out how to do that right now. So let's just try it this way. Hurley.
Aye.
Thank you. Ventresco.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Hans.
Aye.
Marsh.
Aye.
And Bishop.
Aye.
And I think that's everybody. Great, thank you. So for the applicant, I will draft with Tim a letter monumenting the Historical Commission's determination of not historically significant, and circulate that to the building inspector and to yourself for your records.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks. Good luck there.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming. Oh, there it is. Now I have a stop share option. Excellent. And then,
Next up is the 24 Main Street.
yeah, and let me see if we could text. Amy, could you text Mickey if you have her handy? Oh, thank you, to let her know that we're done with that item. Thank you. All right.
Wayne, can you pull up the plans for this and put them on for us?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
We've got the Gills. Let me admit them to panelist. There we go. And great. Okay.
Hey everyone.
Wow, that looks just, oh, there, looks just, how we just voted on. Wow.
Apologies for bothering you again so soon.
No, so members here, the Gill family has decided that they would like to move ahead, not immediately, but maybe 6 months down the road after the birth of their next child, hopefully in mid-December. So at that point, they feel they'll be able to tackle the whole project. We had approved it partially. So what we want to do is just take a look at the other, I won't say half, I'm not quite sure what proportion of it is, but the rest of it, the second part, if there was any questions for them.
Yeah,
Has anything changed? Tim, has anything changed on this?
As far as their first application, Jack, did you say you tweaked something? The architect tweaked something?
So this is actually part and parcel of what we had originally tried to submit.
Right.
The commission decided that at the time it was only worth looking at phase one, but this is initially what we submitted. The only thing that was changed on this was the stone on the exterior vestibule along. It was updated to reflect the stone on the foundation along Oliver Street on the actual exterior vestibule sort of bump out. But everything remains the same, materials, windows. This is just, again, after we're expecting our new baby any day now. We actually weren't even certain that we'd be able to make tonight. But we're still going strong. And, after kind of sitting on it and thinking about going through multiple phases with the young family, we decided it just made more sense to go for the whole project once we're on the back end of the baby. So yeah, it just made more sense to us as a family.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone? Any questions?
Again, this is like the Foundry Street property. I mean, we reviewed this extensively originally, and there's no changes, so I don't have any. This at all.
And the original house, which you would address from Main Street, still remains original. The view and everything. So that you could someday, if someone decided to bring it back to original, I could easily dismantle this without much problem. So, any further discussion?
No, fine.
Okay. Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept this?
So moved. Hands.
I'll second.
Okay, motion been seconded. Wayne, if you want to call us out.
Yes, sir. Hurley,
Aye.
Ventresco,
I
Spencer,
Aye.
Hands.
Aye.
Where do we go? Marsh,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and Bishop.
Aye.
Okay, so that was a motion and a second to grant a certificate of appropriateness for exterior changes to 24 Main Street as per the plans, elevations, and specifications submitted. Actually, this latest plan, you sent it to me, and I believe the only thing that is just today, and I think the only thing that's changed is the treatment of the stonework here on this addition, right?
Right.
Okay, so we will then use this and attach it to the certificate of appropriateness and send it along to the building inspector and back to the applicants.
Correct. Okay. That's it, Gil. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone, again for your help. Appreciate it.
Good luck, my baby.
Thank you
Good
very
luck.
much.
Thank you. And next up on the agenda, we have the Children's Museum.
We do. Bear with me a moment. Where's that? Got try that. Hold on. There we go. Yes, we've got Ms. Santoro. Let me promote her. And then Mr. Strange. And I'll promote him as well.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Hi, Greg.
I, for one, continue to eat Thanksgiving meal. No greens for this body.
I wasn't worried about you at all. Okay, so we have got up now. This is the Children's Museum looking to do some extensive, I'll say repairs, not, I guess some restoration work, I guess. Is this kind of backwards? Correct me if I'm wrong. They have been voted through CPA for funding.
I'm sorry, Christine, you're muted.
Mute. Okay. This is Christine Santoro. I'm the executive director of the museum, and I can give you a little background on the project. We filed our final application for CPA funds yesterday. And we're hoping to move forward and get funded. But I can give you a little background as to our project. And Greg Strange is going to be our consultant on the project. So our plan is, let me just go back a little bit further. In 1991, when the museum opened, work had been done on the building, and really not much work has been done since then. Except maybe some minor repairs. I think windows were reglazed. We recently updated 2 doors, but other than that, it hasn't been painted. I could not find a date for the last time the roof was done. But it certainly has not been done since 1991, and probably not since 86 or maybe even before. So what we're looking to do is to restore and preserve the architectural integrity of the beautiful building that we call our home, and we're seeking funding to do that through the CPA. So the project will entail replacing the roof, replacing 28 or 29 windows. We'll be repairing many of the boards and the siding. Some will be repaired. We'll do the same thing with the trim. We plan to paint the entire building, and we plan to try to recreate the carriage house doors. And I'll let Greg explain to you how we plan to do that. And also we'll be replacing the back door that faces the parking lot and the front porch door. The porch itself will be repaired, will not be replaced. And so we're seeking funding from the CPA for that. And, we wanted to come to you because we do have a historical restriction, and let you know, what our plans are, and to get your opinion and ideas.
Thank you. Greg, I'm glad to see you on board here, buddy.
Shucks, Tim. No.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me get right into this. Are the original windows in the building?
No.
Okay. We're sure of that. 100%
Yes.
sure. Okay.
Yes.
We had the front doors brought to us. Oh boy, how many years ago? 10 years ago? Ed, John, do you
I'm
remember?
going to say 10.
I'd say around 10. Yep.
Okay.
It was
And-
2011.
Okay.
A bad guess.
Wow. Yeah. So, back then we voted no on whatever the design was. So I'm curious. I guess, Greg, do you have something to present to us, or? A visual?
Yeah. Can I share my screen? Probably the easiest way
Yes.
to do that.
Yes, please.
You ever notice? It seems like Zoom changes their interface twice a week.
So, Chris,
Yes.
All right.
the big thing here is going to be materials more than.
Yeah,
I mean,
Tim, if you
we know
want,
everything has to be exact replica. Correct, Greg?
Right. Well, you know what? I can give a real quick. So I take it. Did my screen pop out?
Yes.
Okay.
See, I know you can't.
So,
I know you can't do anything real quick, but go ahead. Oh,
Tim,
that's
I
not
can do
right.
things quick. So
Ooh, that's
as you can
cool.
see,
You can
so
do
the
that.
photo to the right is, I believe, from 1904, and it shows you at the time. Those are the original. And Ed, unless you want to correct me, those I believe are the original.
That's a great picture. I've never seen that
fire
before,
doors.
That is correct. That is the original doors.
Now, if
All
you
right,
look
so-
to the left in the present day photo, you can see the garage doors obviously don't match.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
now I'm going to zoom in, and because I've kind of discovered something recently. I'm kind of newly on board the last month or two on this project, and it takes a little while to get up to speed. But if you, right here, so this is a zoom from that photo. So look at the front door. We're going to change the blue. So this is this is the original door, and you can see it pretty. Other than scale, it pretty much matches the detail and profile of the overhead doors.
Yep.
So our intention, problem with the doors now, they're just doors. They're 7/8 inch thick, single pane glass, freezing cold.
Recording
so
in
we're
progress.
We're going to basically build walls, okay, or we're going to build fixed custom garage doors, if you will, overhead doors. They'll be 4 inches thick. They'll have foam insulation, insulating glass, just like in the photo. They'll be built from mahogany, because mahogany is the best exterior material there is. Possibly a little composite material in the panel areas, because that'll hold up better than MDO. And I don't want to use mahogany plywood, because that's just not going to be very good. But so the key is to bring back that existing look, but now it'll be an insulated, warm looking, right? It won't be that storefront window entranceway that we saw a decade or so ago when I was on the commission. And in our application to CPA, we had that in describing that, and we also had replacing this existing door. But I've sort of, sometimes you have these deadlines, you got to get paperwork in. And it occurred to me, I was looking at these other days, I'm working on some drawings for this, and it's obvious that door is a copy. That door matches the garage doors. It's original. And looking at, so I kind of, when we go back to, I'd like to propose one or two things that, to either replace the door with a custom-made mahogany door, but that's going to add quite a bit of cost. But I think the condition of the door, I think you could take it off. We could take it off site, put in a temporary door, and then just have it reconditioned. Put in all new felt weather strippings, probably replace the threshold, which has seen better days. Strip it down, bring back the original mahogany, do any repair needed, and then finish it in exterior UV resistant, although not as important because it's under a porch, but UV resistant spar varnish and some oils, and bring it back to the way it looked 150 years ago. How old is this building?
120.
120.
Exactly. There you go.
So, and I think I'm going to jump. So that's the game plan for that. So the big things here, some of the obvious stuff. There's a lot of broken and rotted clapboards. We're going to take those out. We're going to replace them with clear vertical grade cedar clapboard, stain seal, and we're going to be repainting the whole building, scraping it down. There's various some rotted trim, not a ton, but there's enough in various spots. Those that will be repaired and replaced with a wood or a like kind of alternative material. We're going to be the other three exterior doors. There's two sort of just kind of standard low end steel doors. One on the one on the fire escape up on the second floor, and one on the right side of the building over here. You can't see it, but we'll put in a higher quality, probably a fiberglass, like a Smooth Star, which is it's a steel insulated door, but it has a fiberglass skin with an embossed wood pattern on it that would accept paint great. But that way we'll have good thermal performance, good commercial grade door, and then the front door I explained, and in the basement there's a French door going facing the town parking lot. We did the same thing for the windows. As you can see, I think some of the windows here may be original. Hard to say. There's certainly original profile areas, but they're single pane glass. The old sashes, they're beat up, and they have storm windows. Those lovely storm windows that have been over them for probably 5 or 6 decades. What I'm proposing to CPA and to the museum and to this board is we put in an Anderson Architectural Series window. Now that's going to have a fiberglass exterior. The product's called Fibrex. It's a reinforced fiberglass, but it looks just like painted wood, and more importantly, it has the scale and proportions and details of the old wood double hung windows. It would have simulated divided light grills, so that means on the inside it'll be thermal pane glass, but on the inside and the outside would maintain the 9/1 pattern. As you can see, there's 9 grills up top. So, and all this existing trim would remain. But basically, we'd be putting it in as a replacement window. It would be wood on the interior and painted, but that's kind of irrelevant for the purpose of this board. Reason I wouldn't go wood is there's only one way you could do it, and in my opinion, it would be like a Marvin replacement Magnum. And I mean, these windows they're already $1,500 a pop. You go to Marvin, it's going to be 3 times that, and I challenge, and I've worked recently with historical commissions in Falmouth, Hyannis, even the South End, and they're all on board with Anderson architectural series because it's come a long way. You really can get whatever look you want. Not everything's a colonial double hung window like it is in this case, and they have lots of options. And I challenge anybody looking at it from the street wouldn't see it. And this would allow us, going with a modern window like this, would allow us to go just with a half screen down on the bottom half. So that way, what's missed when I, in fact, look at this old photo and look at the grills. Look how much more they stand out than when you have a storm window over it. So now going with a simulated divided light, it'll look just like this did 120 years ago. Be a much nicer look, but it'll give the museum the security of good thermal performance, or great thermal performance, and they won't have to touch these again. These are some of the best windows on the market. And so quickly looking at this spreadsheet, so that's the roof. Yeah, roof will come down, be completely redone. It'll be a 40-year architectural shingle. One of the major manufacturers would have to pick one first. Be all complete ice and water barrier, complete historically done flashings, and by that I mean you won't see us putting 8-inch aluminum standard extruded drip edge on the rakes because these are crown molding rakes. It'll be custom made aluminum, or in some cases lead coated copper to fit the conditions. And that brings us to the last one over here, the existing picture. And there was a debate recently I had with some folks downtown. It's like, is this a roof or is this siding? You can see the red shingles. Well, if you look back at the original photo, the building was all, I'm assuming, red cedar. Maybe it was white cedar back then, but it was a cedar. It was a wood roof. And at some point in time, it was decided to keep this part. The problem with it, especially if we end up with tariffs as we did 4 years ago, where the price of red cedar went up like 5,000% and basically made it impossible to buy. We have an architectural roof. We have all these wonderful colors, and then you have this wood roof that doesn't really tie into anything. And just to do this area with all the crickets and everything, it's like $24,000. It's very expensive. And the thought is, I'm like, well, maybe what we could do is go with asphalt shingle there to match what we, the architectural, to match what we have everywhere else. That way we can, rebate, 10 or 20,000 back to the town. I'd take a look, we'd look to say, oh, hey, let's spend a little more on this door, but let's let this go to architectural, which they'll get 40 or 50 years out of, and we won't have to worry about it again.
Greg, that's not that old, that roof there.
Right. But again, the thought is, I just think, remember, when I was on this commission and when I was on CPA, 11 years ago or 15 years ago, they came in for some work. I know I don't want to speak for them, but I think they'd like to get everything done and not have to come back in 5 or 10 years. Because that red cedar, that's a tough exposure for a tough condition. There's a lot of damage on the backside by a cricket that's leaking. And so the thought, that's just my thought is, I don't know if it's kind of a leftover piece of red cedar, and is that,
yeah, I don't know,
aesthetically significant to the building. I don't know.
I don't know if the intent was to do that and at some point to red cedar on the rest of the building, which you pointed out would be expensive, but I'm not sure if that's not what the intent was there.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch enough of that to
No, I didn't either.
get the gist of it. I'm assuming that was true for everyone, but do you want to try again, Tim? You kind of broke up.
I'm not sure if the original intent was not to do the complete roof in red cedar at some point. I'm not sure if that was a starting point.
I have no reason to think that was the intent.
Excuse me?
I have no reason to think that was the intent when they last did the roof. I could find very little information about when the roof was done or any of the intent. I think that if we do the 40-year architectural shingles all over it, we'll protect the building for a longer period of time. And I think, honestly, it will actually look better than having the current look there with the shingles in the condition that they are.
So I guess I wasn't sure if Tim was trying to say something or not. But,
I don't
so,
know.
so anyway, so that's, I've made we've talked about that. In the windows we talked about, and then on the side of the house, there's I don't have a photo of it, but there's a fire escape. It's basically right now, it's a pressure treated, think of a very small pressure treated deck with lots of stairs. And it's woefully undersized by code. In terms of the columns and stuff. So that's going to come down, and we would replace it with properly sized structure and a pre-finished sort of a composite material. It's a colonial looking, I should have called it. It's a it's an AZEC line, and it's their premium rail. So it has pyramid caps, has a colonial rail, square balusters. So it has a nice period look to this, and I apologize. I could send one in, but again, this looks better than putting up. What's your option? Put up pressure treated, or put up some type of rot resistant wood and paint it. But that doesn't, there's most of your wood that's made for railings and balusters that's not pressure treated is very recently created or young, I shouldn't say created, young exotic hardwoods, which really don't hold up well in this climate. And so we're looking to build something that's both aesthetically accurate to the building, complementary to the building, would do it in white, and then yet will last 50 years, not have to get fixed after asking the town for investment. The front porch we're going to replace. There's a little bit of rot here and there. We'll fix that. We're keeping the wonderful historic bench that's there. We'll restore it, and we'll go put down Douglas fir decking. I shouldn't say Douglas, but clear vertical grain fir, the old period piece, which would have been there originally.
Yep.
So I think that's everything, Christine. If I missed anything, I think that's.
Yeah, I think that is everything.
Yeah.
So what we'll need, Greg, can you guys hear me right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what we're going to need is a bunch of samples or whatever the stuff, when you start to do windows, doors, the front doors, we're going to need some detail. You've brushed over the materials and stuff, but when you firm it up, you'll be coming back to us.
I guess through the building permit process, right? Sure, where it's in the local historic district.
Correct. I think this materials is materials are the big thing here. Not only the historic look, but the actual materials are paramount here. So,
sure, absolutely.
But the front doors, that's amazing that we have that photograph. That's absolutely perfect. Couldn't ask for more than that.
Yeah, it's a fun. That's a fun.
Yeah.
A fun
Are you
detail.
going to restore the ladder in the front too, or?
Is there any truth that that's Lee Williams up on that ladder?
Probably.
Looks like one of his old hats.
So, could I speak to an issue here?
Yes.
You'll like the conclusion. The original roof of the entire station was that same kind of cedar that's on the little extension that we're talking about. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
So wouldn't that answer the question that architecturally, originally, that little section you're looking at read as part of the roof rather than siding?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my take. In fact, I was reading. Christine had a building inspector or like a home inspector go through this, write a report up about a year ago, and I was reading it, and he kept referring to it as a sidewall. But I'm with you, Ed. I said no, it's really part of the roof. And at one point I said, oh, well, maybe we could keep those shingles and we could paint them. The problem is those shingles have been weathered for quite some time, so paint's not going to stick to them. And that just wouldn't work. That would, that thing being lit up the color of the building was never the intention of the designer.
Exactly
So,
right.
Yeah, but that's
My only question here, if I could just finish my point here, Tim.
yes.
I would support using the asphalt shingles. The problem is, CPA can only pay for a restoration. I think we need to look. I think one side or the other, CPA or historical, needs to look into that to make sure that can be funded by CPA. We had that same problem with the roof on the Congregational Church, where they wanted to put in an alternate material, and we were told that they could only put in slate. So,
Right, correct.
so I think we should get that cleared up. But I have no problem putting the same shingles that are on the roof.
Well, hey, Greg, why a 40-year? Isn't there a longer life shingle?
Yeah, a couple things. The reason, first of all, after 40 years, the roofs are faded, so people replace them anyways. You know, most roofs these days aren't replaced because they're leaking. They're replaced because the look has gone. You know, some of the color blends from the 80s don't work with today's colors. And if I could just say, and then like the 60-year shingles, they're extremely thick and very heavy. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the look we want, and I start to get worried about the load on an old structure like this. This was designed for a cedar roof, and
so,
anyways,
but a cedar roof properly applied, you'll agree, would last a lot longer than 40 years.
So I would just answer it this way. As a citizen of Easton, and you guys know I've supported all sorts of different types of projects, and even though I've stepped away from all the boards, I want to continue to do that. But you know, we're limited in what we can have for money, and so yeah, a cedar roof on this, a red cedar roof, fantastic. But it would the roof here is what, 42,000, I think, and in cedar, I would probably be $342,000. And this has been there hasn't been an outcry for the 30 years that this asphalt roof's been on top of this building. You look at the building, the look is, the only problem I have with this building is the pink wall under the roof of the porch. But that's a little joke to the folks that work there. But
that's going.
Red cedar, even done on cedar breather and done all properly, it doesn't. There's still no old growth trees left. It doesn't last like it used to in the old days. Yeah, you'd probably get 40 years out of it. My first red cedar roof I did about 38 years ago. I saw it the other day, and it looks pretty good. But I don't know. Just personally speaking, as a taxpayer, I'd rather see 300,000 go to help another building or preserve some more property.
I understand that part of it, but back to what Ed said, if it becomes a problem here and we have to look at cedar, then that's
sure. But what did we do? Of course, I wasn't prepared for that question. I can think, but think back to the shovel works, right? Or was the CPA just for the open space there? Didn't we have some historical preservation on that?
Yeah, we have quite. And that went with asphalt shingles. The question, right, I think, would be when we originally acquired this building, well, for the Children's Museum, acquired the building. What kind of roof did they have on it then? And I bet you it was asphalt shingles.
Oh, it definitely was. Yeah, no question.
It was asphalt shingles for sure, because this roof I don't think has been replaced since the building was transferred to the museum.
Yeah, so I don't foresee a problem. I just want to make sure that it's not a sticking point somewhere down the line.
Sure. Well, and I think often, these things are sort of up to interpretation. And I know I've certainly sat in front of other, historical commissions in town, and they talk about things like, and I'm not an expert in the Department of the Interior standards, but there is something to be said, kind of what we're talking about. When originally so for the first 30 years, let's say, of its life, it was a wood roof, but for the last 90, it's been asphalt. So how does that translate to sort of the vernacular of the town? Has there been an outcrying for, we want a wood roof back? And so I think, I've seen many commissions allow some modernization of materials because it's the inevitable creep of modernity to some point. And
I don't think you're even asking for modernity. You're asking to recreate a look that's been there for close to a century.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Well said.
If I could also weigh in with my experience with dealing with these sorts of questions, it often comes down to, is it original material? So it's a different question of, do you have the original 100-year-old slates of the slate roof that you're restoring, or are you dealing with a replacement of a replacement of a replacement? In which case you don't actually have original material that you're preserving or restoring.
So what do we need to do at this point?
I don't think we're doing anything right now. I think we're getting the museum. Greg will come back as they progress and show us what they've got materials wise, and again, we'll have.
Isn't the question, Tim, whether we've supported this in front of the CPA? Have we put in a letter of support?
No.
And I think that would be a careful letter of support would be appropriate, and that would take a motion.
Okay, I agree.
I have just one quick question for Greg. Greg, you answered all the questions that I had as usual. You did a great job in that presentation. This seems minor, but I'm just curious about the side door. Is it rotted?
The entrance door over here?
Yeah.
No, I don't. You know what? Like I said before, when you sometimes, I've been doing this for a living, but it takes multiple visits to a property to kind of, for clarity and to see things. So the first few times I went through, Christine was saying, we're walking around, she's like, we need to replace this door or this, that. And I didn't really look. And it wasn't until recently I said, wait a minute, because I've been studying this great picture that Christine found with the original overhead doors, or I guess they weren't overhead, the original firehouse doors. And then I said, wait a minute. And I looked and I said, oh, that's the exact door. I said, we have to see if we can save it. And my thought is, I think it's in good enough shape that we could take it out, recondition hinges, like I say, weather strip it, maybe replace the threshold, new exterior casing. But I think, with my experience, I think the door is savable, and I think we could do that for say $3,000 to $5,000 versus building it brand new would be up to 10,000. So I'd rather, I love the fact that I do like to save original things when you can, because things do get changed over time, just like the roof we were talking about, right?
My question, my point. So I'd like to make that a point that that could be restored, because I think it would be really nice. You sandblast that down and do your thing.
Yeah,
I think it can be done.
And it's a great reference to I've been racking my brain looking for trim profiles to create these doors, and I've got this one right in front of me. So I'm like, oh, that's much easier.
So
like that.
So Ed, yes, we vote to support it with the caveat that we need to still approve materials, profiles, etc.
Yep, I agree. That's a perfect thing. Are you making that a motion, sir?
Yes, please.
And I will second that motion, with the stipulation that Wayne writes the letter.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a motion and a second that the Historical Commission supports the CPA application for the exterior restoration work at the Children's Museum, with the understanding that through the local historic district certificate of appropriateness process, the applicant will return to the commission for approval as work begins of materials and specifications.
Correct. Perfect. All right, we have a motion first and seconded.
Oh, right, yes, Hurley?
Aye.
And I lost my earpiece. Okay, Hurley was a yes. Ventresco?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
And Hands?
Aye.
And Marsh?
Aye.
And Wolf?
Aye.
And Bishop?
Aye.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for
Thank you,
joining
everyone.
us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Enjoy those salads.
Aye.
Wayne up next. I think we have minutes. Am I correct?
No, we've got Jen Carlino, who's been waiting
I'm sorry.
very
Sorry, Jen.
patiently to talk about the Tufts Farm CPA application, and also to chat a bit about the upcoming open space plan update. Let me promote Jen to panelist. Been waiting very patiently through the 45 minutes of our meeting.
But it was a fascinating meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Riveting. There's Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Jen.
Jen's here to tell us all the good news of Tufts Farm. If you could, please, Jen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Tufts Farm is on Canton Street, if you're not familiar with it. It's a historic farmhouse that we're looking to restore. There's also a barn and a workshop on the property. Those buildings are in desperate need of repair, so we're hoping to repair those as well. The project supports open space and recreation for a public outreach and education. The barn would be part of tours, events, demonstrations by our tenant farmer who is breeding sheep at the moment.
Wow.
We have a bunch of cute little lambs in the spring. He's also looking to have some interns, trying to get interns from Bristol Aggie so they can learn about agriculture and sorry, I lost my thought. Oh, and to try to do some agritourism, which would be really exciting. We're looking for trying to make the buildings safe and efficient. Additional benefits are with more efficient buildings, the farm will become self-sustaining and would help to address some local food insecurities and provide locally produced agricultural products like mutton and wool. And it would continue Easton's, great agricultural traditions, and the entire farmscape view would be consistent with what the farmhouse looks like. It's also part of the Tufts Farm master plan to restore the area and continue having agriculture on the property.
Yes, thank you.
About agriculture and less about the actual historic portion, but the historic farm has been there for a couple hundred years. The building itself, the house, is a historic structure. The kennel was historic structure, but that's been removed. And we're hoping to make the barn consistent with the look of the historic farmhouse.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions, anyone, for Jen?
I just have just a couple of comments. Well, I'm a proponent of this project. I also agree with what the applicant, Jen, and her group are bringing forward, and that is leaning towards replacing the barn, which is non-historic, as she said, and it's actually in the application also. I think it would be cost effective. I think it would be a great asset. I think it will be, all in all, you've got my vote. Everything else, again, me personally, I am for this project. I think anything that we can do to bring back farming in our community is beyond expectations. So I think well done. And my only other thing, and it's kind of a sidebar a little bit, don't worry, Jen, it's not that bad, but it just sticks in my craw over the years, no matter what application comes before CPC, it wasn't that long ago that contingencies were at 10%. And then they went to 15%, and then they went to 25%. And I can't wrap my head around it. I understand completely the unforeseen. That is, anybody that's got common sense is going to understand that. But 25%, it just blows my mind. I mean, it just tells me that somebody is saying, hey, when I get this job, I get a pretty dang good cushion. So with that said, I think that whoever takes these jobs, if they want these jobs, these contingencies have to come down, because if they've jumped 15% in just a few years, within another few years, we're going to be at 35% contingency. And it seems like an overstretch and exaggeration, but I, again, never thought I'd see 25% as a contingency. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, John. After the last meeting, we did ask
I did bring it up at CPC.
a few, we did ask around, and I had thought it was, 10, and for a while it was 20%. But it's our consultant who prepared the bid documents and the estimate who suggested the 25%. They're saying there's a lot of volatility in the cost of construction and the labor market. And so they had recommended the 25%. I also checked with DPW, and they said it's conservative, but because they're working on, old buildings, it's not a bad idea to have that. Any contingency would certainly be returned back to the CPC if it hadn't been used, as with any other funds. I absolutely understand what you're saying. That it's a quarter of the price. It's a big
chunk.
Yeah.
People who are working the construction crews, if they know they have that cushion. I mean, I'm just watching the citizens' money, and if they're worked on old buildings before, they get it. They should see some of these unforeseens and figure that in their original pricing. I just, as you can tell, I feel strongly about it. But
yeah, no, I don't disagree with you.
it's a lot.
You have to remember that's spoken by a guy who's just budgeted a program with zero contingency. We have zero.
Oh, wait a minute. We both agreed on that, Mr. Hands.
Yes. And we're working to come up with a 10% contingency right now.
Right. 10 to 15% I can get it, but 25%.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you.
John, I understand your frustration there as well. But obviously it would have to be justified. It just wouldn't be, oh yeah, we want 25% over. I mean, you'd have to justify that with materials and labor and, really sharpen the pencil in order to get to 25%.
Well, once you budgeted it, Tim, how it gets expended is out of the hands of the CPC. And I think that's what John's referring to.
Correct.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I agree. But you can still keep an eye on it.
Yes.
The town still can. I mean, it can still come back. But anyway, Jen, will this be sheep only? Will it be built sheep only, or is that a non-farm savvy question?
So the Conservation Commission would look at it like we're trying to make sure all agriculture is welcome.
Okay.
There, our current tenant, who's fantastic, by the way, I hope you get to meet him and can attend some of these events. He's done a great job there. He is focused on sheep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
no, Ed, you laugh.
We're focusing on sheep, but it should be, whatever is being proposed is flexible enough that it would cover any kind of agriculture.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Ed laughs, but I want the doors to be big enough to let a horse in.
I laughed when you said, "Is this a farm savvy question?"
Right. Yeah, but you want the door big enough to let a horse in if somebody changes from sheep to horses or something. So
they have those mini horses now. Don't worry about it.
Oh boy. Can we get rid of hands?
Could I just say something in support of the project?
No.
Number one, whether there's agriculture there or not, is really none of our business as a historical commission. We have an agricultural commission in town that will push for that. I think what we want to emphasize is that by maintaining this in agriculture, it promotes the heritage of agriculture in Easton. So it's a historical issue there. And the house is, as Jen says, at least 200 years old, goes back to the beginning of the 19th century, and it has some interesting occupants and uses over the years, which would make a great historical story as well. So I support this 100%.
Yep, with you.
Thank you.
Can I go back one step? Anything constructed, and I believe you said would be sympathetic to the era of the farm. Am I right there?
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit, so could you repeat it?
Any buildings that are built would be sympathetic to the era of the house of the farm?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking with, working with Vermont Frames. And
Okay.
they do quite a bit of more historical looking post and beam, barns.
I think it's essential that the whole flavor is,
Mhm.
brought back in to that time.
Yes, we want it to be cohesive. The way it looks
Yes.
now, just
Yes. Thank you.
ramshackle
Appreciate it.
buildings.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is this looking for a letter of support, Wayne?
I think it could. One thing that I would, two things I would add on to what Jen said, and this is perhaps germane for John and Ed on the CPC. We did talk with town council about what is eligible for CPA funds. The house, of course, is CPA historic funds. Should there be a recommendation and an approval at town meeting for a historically appropriate but new constructed barn, that would be to support the open space and public recreational use of the property, because it allows the property to be maintained and used safely by the public, and provides for public engagement, public events. So
it's a
that,
twofold.
exactly. So yes, this is an
That's
open
nice.
space
That's
recreation and
That's
historic
nice.
preservation would
Wow,
be the rationale.
That's a win-win. That's nice.
Yeah,
Nice
I think so.
Nice
Yeah.
combination for everybody.
Um,
Cool.
and I think what would the letter of support be? The Historical Commission supports the CPA application for the rehabilitation of the Tufts farmhouse and farmstead. I'm sure
Yeah,
Tim, you and
proposed.
I can draft
Yeah,
something up.
Yep.
That sound like a fair summary of the group's position?
Yes, definitely.
Would you include the open space part of that as well into that letter?
Yes. Yeah, I think we'd word it to make sure that the letter demonstrates the commission understands the dual nature of
Thank you.
the funding intent. And
All right.
an additional thing that I want to re-emphasize, Jen did it very well, I think, but a big part of this is to bring this and other, as the Historical Commission and the CPC has been seeing in the last couple of years, really an interest in bringing these town-owned assets into a state of good repair so that they can be self-sustaining and become real jewels and assets for the town, and can just roll along, taking care of themselves and not require a lot of continued ongoing intervention.
Well, on that note, Wayne, I think when you have a nice place for someone to live, to work, they're going to stay there longer. You get
Yes.
a better product. Your sense of ownership is better. All this would go in hand, I think.
Yeah, and it's easier to ask a tenant to maintain something that's in a state of good repair rather than try to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'll make a motion to support that letter of support, I guess.
I'll second that letter.
You're muted, John.
All right, motion. Who is?
John is muted. He's trying to talk. He's making talking. There we go.
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's
So with our letter of support, are we going to have updates and some type of oversight as this building is restored?
I think that goes without saying, John, that someone's
Yeah,
got
but
to keep.
I still like to have it. I still like to have it. In the past, we've done this before, and things have not gone the way the conversation went. So if we could have something in writing, that would be appreciated.
Well, Wayne and I have been going out checking on these projects that are CPA funded as they go along.
Yeah, that is part of it is staff and historical commission share approval of the work done before payment is released. So that is part of the oversight.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to double check.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion second for letter of support.
Should I go around and call on people?
Please do.
Hurley?
Aye.
Ventresco?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Hands?
Aye.
Marsh?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
And Bishop?
Aye.
Thanks. All right.
Now we have minutes.
We do not.
Now what? I can't get back to my
Recreation
agenda.
plan.
I'm getting like hands. I'm rushing this thing. Let's go. Let's go.
The
I have nowhere to go. So go ahead.
open space might take a minute if you really want to do the minutes first. I don't mind waiting.
No, go ahead. No. I'm sorry. My apologies. My apologies. If I get to my agenda, I lose everybody. So.
Okay. So I'm going to share the screen. And then Wayne, just let me know if you're looking at the notes or if you're looking at the notes.
We're looking at the notes.
Okay. I have to move my toolbar for a second here. How about now?
Correct. We are not seeing notes. No.
Okay. Unfortunately, neither am I. So
Oh.
it's okay. I have a hard copy. So we'll go back. But great. Thank you everyone for allowing me to come today and talk about the open space and recreation plan. Jennifer Carlino, the land use and environmental planner. And today we're just giving a brief overview of open space and recreation plans and discuss how we're going to update the plan. And open space means different things to different people. So it's an opportunity to learn more about our community. You know, like you, I frequently use various types of open space for different activities like rock climbing and hiking and mountain biking, photography, wildlife observation, and understand how important open space is to all of us. Open space plays a particularly important role for all of us during COVID for physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Just want to also acknowledge that what we now know of as the Town of Easton is the ancestral lands of Native peoples, including Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Connecticut. And we acknowledge their suffering and that many descendants are still here today and that they have a voice, and we welcome that voice. So we'll talk about the Conservation Commission Act. In 1957, the Massachusetts legislature adopted the Conservation Commission Act, and that was for the promotion and development of natural resources and watershed protection. It also allowed the Conservation Commission to conduct research, print and advertise books, maps, charts, plans, and pamphlets. But this is the section of the law that requires the Conservation Commission to create a conservation and passive outdoor recreation plan consistent with town's master plan or any other regional plans. Unfortunately, in the 1980s, Wetland Protection Act took over most of the Conservation Commission's duties, but the open space plan is still one of those. So what is open space? When you hear the word open space, what do you think of? And you can either put things in the chat, or we can, raise your hand and talk, or you can just say, please just keep going. So it means different things to different people. And we give a few hints with some photos. So it could be any of these types of areas. Open space can be split into two different categories. We have passive recreation and we have active recreation. The difference between passive and active recreation is an important distinction to make. Passive recreation is the primary purpose of preserving land under the Conservation Commission Act. So not every type of activity is appropriate for conservation land due to its negative potential impacts on the natural resources. Passive recreation is any outdoor activity that occurs in a natural setting with minimal disturbance to the natural and cultural resources, and that's consistent with quiet enjoyment of the property. Active recreation, on the other hand, is an activity that occurs in parks, requires some significant alteration of the natural landscape. Maybe it has a timed amount of play, a certain number of minutes for a quarter or for a game. May have a motorized component to it, or it has additional facilities. Passive recreation is only type of recreation that's allowed on conservation land, but active recreation is usually done by a recreation commission or department. So a little bit of background here, so we'll go into what's the open space and recreation plan. This is something that is required by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. It's approved by the Division of Conservation Services, and that enables the town to be eligible for state and federal grant funding. It's a significant source of funding for any type of open space project, so having a valid and approved open space plan is really important to the town, especially when these grant applications could be 64 to 50% reimbursement. It's a great avenue for the town. Open space plan is like a master plan, in that it explains, what we want our community to look like, or what we want to have, or what we want to promote. How do we want to preserve our natural resources? How do we preserve the community character? Provide food, recreation, water supply. How do we connect our wildlife or to our neighbors? And so there are different steps that we take to get there. It's truly a collaborative effort of the community on how to do natural open space protection. So there are certain parts of the open space plan that are required, and it's pretty onerous. It's a large plan. We're trying to work with Division of Conservation Services to shorten this a little bit. I mean, some of these plans can be at least 300 pages. Everybody wants to read that. I don't want to write it. It's a lot of work. I would much rather get to the really nitty gritty, the good analysis and the fun part of planning those projects than just writing all the background work. But right now it is currently required. So our community setting includes things like the regional context, our history, something you're all interested in, population, infrastructure, talks about planning and changing weather patterns. Environmental analysis is everything you can think of: geology, geography, topography, agricultural soils, landscape character, all our water resources, all our different types of vegetation, plants, animals, unique features within the town. It also includes environmental challenges. So things like hazardous waste sites, areas where there's flooding, areas where we know of some pollution, invasive species, and environmental justice areas. The open space plan also includes a list of all the public available property. And I've been spending all summer trying to verify that what we have listed for preserved property, we actually have the deed that shows, yes, this is preserved, or we have town meeting votes that show property was transferred to either conservation or park or water department property. We also have private lands that are used for recreation purposes, like golf courses. We saw the Children's Museum. They're a wonderful asset for us as well. So public participation is the driving force of the open space plan, even though a lot of it is done in-house with technical assistance from our staff. Okay. So we can talk about Easton's environment. That's really when we're taking a look at our assets. Most people who've responded to our open space and recreation plan survey right now said they love going to Wheaton Farm and Borderland State Park, Sheep Pasture, Yardley Rink, the Country Club, Ames Free Library, Langwater Farm, Frothingham Park, Keachfield, Militia Park, a number of other places. We also have a really important water resources for the town. The Canoe River Aquifer is certainly one that Easton has really been in the forefront of that and spearheaded those. designations, state and federal designations for the importance of our drinking water supplies and how to protect those areas. Special flood hazard areas and our wetlands are all really important areas. So what, try think about what else we can do to protect our water resources. Is it just purchasing property? Is it through regulation? Is it through water conservation? There's all different types of ways we can do that. Our plants and wildlife. We have land purchases and bylaw protection are available, but what else can we use to protect our local wildlife, not just our rare species? What about in our own backyards? If you're familiar with Homegrown National Park or National Wildlife Federation's Certified Backyard Wildlife Habitat Program, those are great ways where individual homeowners can collectively create wildlife preserves in their own neighborhood. And what about protecting connections between open space or between special wildlife habitats? Animals are just like us, right? We still have to go to the supermarket to get things. We have to go to the hardware store. We drive to visit our friends. Animals are the same way. They need to get their food, cover, shelter, migratory areas, the same way we need food, clothing, and shelter as well. So trying to make those connections so that wildlife can get there safely and so people can move from recreational area to recreational area. So we briefly talked about some of the environmental challenges, and we have a few of them listed here. Erosion, sedimentation, dumping, and dumping doesn't just mean hazardous waste. The biggest thing I see is compost in the wetland. People take all of the leaves, grass clippings, and put them in the wetland. Even though it's a natural material, it doesn't naturally fall in that area. And when it does, a pile of leaves starts to compress the soil. It takes up flood space and might push floodwaters onto someone else's property. It prevents plants from growing up through those areas. This is just one example. Deer overbrowsing is another example. Deer love to eat all the native plants, which means that the invasive species start to flourish even more than they already do. But another challenge could be lack of funding to maintain property or lack of adequate staffing to run recreational programs. Management of existing open space resources is something that we would also include in the plan. Trails and boardwalks need regular maintenance, but so do town buildings and other facilities that also need improvement. Trying to come up with a full management plan and a management strategy in the capital budget is an important thing for us to include in the open space plan. We also want to talk about things like ecosystem restoration and improving wildlife aquatic migration. Let's see. So one idea is removing dams. And so that restores the natural stream ecosystem. Ponds aren't always a natural ecosystem, even though we have several in town and we do love utilizing them. Here's one example of a pond where the stream was actually restored, which now allows wildlife not just to move through the water column, up and down, but now they can move through the entire system and get from place to place, which improves genetic diversity. It allows some of our cold water species to move upstream into the smaller headwater streams that also serve as their nurseries for the small fish. Really important to try to continue having wildlife moving upstream as well. Skip all that. All right, so our existing open space. Are there other properties that we'd like to preserve? This is something that we include in the open space plan, but we do want to be sensitive to landowners. We don't want anyone to feel like the town is going to take their land or, they're going after a certain property. This is more of the community and staff recognizing the importance of a certain parcel of property, and that it would be nice to preserve that area. So we try to be sensitive and not use people's names. If there's a farm, try to use the address. A lot of open space survey respondents so far had said they really want to preserve active farmland, cranberry bogs. If we look at South Easton, there may be an area there where, they don't have as much open space as the rest of the town. And that's something we may want to look at. So the Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan is aiming for 30% preservation by 2030 and 50% preservation by 2050. And are those goals that we can support and foster? The purpose of that is to deal with our changing weather patterns and trying to store carbon either in the forest areas or within our soils. There's another really interesting project. We're trying to get some sort of open space or a park within half a mile of everyone's house. This way, everyone has equal access to using conservation land or parkland. So our active recreation is the other half of our open space and recreation plan. And so what types of active recreation or targeted recreational opportunities do we want to see in Easton? Part of the open space plan shows that people are really interested in more sidewalks so they can get from place to place. Amenities like lights and water and benches and signs, parking areas. Those are things that we've started working on with our last year's CPC grant, and we'll continue to work on that. People are also saying they don't, activities aren't scheduled for when they have the time to do it. And so we're trying to get information from people about when they're available and what activities they would like to see is important. Some ideas included a bike park for kids, adult after work programs, and more benches along trails. And what about facilities? Are there certain facilities that people would like to see? In addition to getting public feedback, there are technical resources that I would start to look at and I would infuse into the open space plan. So one of the Mass Climate Action tool shows us where wildlife would benefit from upgrading the culverts, where they would be able to move within the water column, like we discussed with the removal of dams. It also shows our hunting setbacks. And when we look at our forests, if you can see all the way through the forest, it's not really a healthy forest. And that tells me that there's really a lot of over browsing by deer. When you look at a forest, you do want to see all different sizes and ages of trees and shrubs and understory. When deer aren't managed, we end up with lots more invasive species and almost just see trees. And unless that's a floodplain forest, that's not really a natural scenario. And so when I use a plan like this, I can narrow in some focus and say, if these are all the hunting setbacks, then we really need to preserve the green area so that there is available space for people to safely hunt and maintain our native ecosystems. Just one example. A big portion of our open space plan is to create goals and objectives. And so these are just two examples from our survey. Most people would say, yes, we need to preserve our water resources. And how would we do that? We could acquire high yield aquifer land, restoring aquatic ecosystems, and educating folks about conservation. We can also have a goal of preventing loss of agricultural lands and a few different ways to preserve that. And so we're looking at, what other ways can you think of that you would like to achieve those goals, and what steps need to be taken in order to do that? What are our timeframes? The open space plan requires us to say which year we're going to do these things, which is not realistic because you make a giant list of all the things you really want to accomplish, and as funding and opportunity becomes available, you grab those and you do as much as you can. So you're probably wondering, well, what are the next steps? So right now I'm taking in all comments. We have a draft survey. Well, we have an open space survey that so far we have about 175 respondents. So we're hoping to get some more. Attending meetings like this, hoping people will, throw out some ideas toward the end of the presentation that I can write down and say, yes, Historical Commission would love to, tackle these sorts of projects. I present the draft plan for public comment, probably sometime closer to spring. We ask for public support letters. We do need to have official votes from the select board and the planning board that go into the open space plan draft, and that's submitted to the Division of Conservation Services for approval. So thank you for participating. I'm going to stop share. I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to put the survey in the chat and hopefully, oops. Oh, that didn't work. Nope. Not going to do that yet. Try that one more time. I had it all set up so I could be very savvy and sneaky and just put it in there without you seeing me move back and forth a whole bunch, but there it is. So if you click on that and later on take the survey, that's wonderful. It's great information for us. But are there anything you would like to add to the plan? I'd love to hear your ideas. If you have specific projects that you're working on that you'd like me to include, including all of your ideas means that when you apply for a grant to do some of those projects, you can point to the open space plan and say, this is a publicly accepted project, and you usually get more points in your grant application for that. So feel free to include as much as you would like. Any thoughts?
Wow, you did well, Jen.
Thank you.
So Jen, you did a great job. I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Jen, at some point you said the state wants 30 to 50% conservation. What was that?
Yeah, that's that's part of the state's resiliency goals, and that's for not just the whole state, but aiming within each municipality, because they understand, some cities aren't going to be able to do that, and Western Mass would be able to do a better job of that because there's more land available. But being able to preserve 30% of the land area by 2030 and 50% by 2050, help with the climate resilience goals, reducing greenhouse gases, carbon storage, cleaning the air, and keeping the temperature cool in our areas.
Do you know where we're at right now?
I don't. That's part of what I'll be trying to figure out. So
okay.
Our GIS department will help me with that. I've got to finish the matrix of all the land that is open space first. Yeah.
The number that's been thrown around for years is over 35%.
Okay, so we get a good start anyway.
Yes.
The other one I thought was pretty aggressive was to have a little open park area or whatever every half mile. That's a reach. I don't know if that's some areas, yes, some, yeah. I guess every half mile you put a bench on Center Street or something and say, there it is on Bay Road, put a bench. I don't know.
Well, at least, Tim, 3 of us on this commission are working towards that goal in Southeastern currently.
Well, we're also working towards that goal at Tufts Farm. So
that's right.
I think we may be closer to that than you think.
And that would be great. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think we're slowly getting there. So what's your thoughts that we're potentially losing a very large tract of open space, which is the golf course?
I'm sure there are opportunities for that. It hasn't come across my desk yet.
Interesting.
I'd love to see it. If there are lots of comments on it, people are putting it in the open space plan survey.
I think it's going to be kind of late. They have an applicant now, as you.
No, I wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an application for a major national building company to put in multiple units.
Okay.
So if you don't know, as you said, maybe it's something you ought to be looking into.
Yeah, that's going to have to come to Jen though. That's not going to go. Definitely won't go under the radar.
Eventually it would come, yes, but I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
No, I think you did a great job in the presentation. What you're doing is, support.
And Jen, when you started naming off all the areas we have, you get a good feeling that we have just about every corner of town covered with, somewhere to go. It's
almost makes me feel proud of paying my taxes. Almost.
No, but when you named them all off, I was like, wow, yeah. Wheaton Farm, the park, Frothingham Park, and behind the library, and you went on and on. I thought, that's pretty good. We've done all right. We're doing good.
It's done very well. There's one question in the survey that asks, if how frequently people go to a number of different places.
Right.
And I purposely put a question in there that said where, so that if people didn't know where that was, I would be able to take that information and go, okay, we need to do some better public outreach on that, one particular park. And
well, that's also great for newcomers.
Yes.
And, to say, oh, I didn't know about that. I've been here a year and I don't know all these places. So that's excellent to get people out and around. Cool. Jen, are you looking for a letter of endorsement from us, or that's,
Not yet. I'm looking for whatever ideas you have. So there must be some historic projects or archaeological projects or
interesting.
Is there anything that you see yourselves doing in the next maybe 7 to 10 years that you would love to see part of the project? I know you have your own historic.
Interesting.
But is there something specific you would love to see?
Well, what Ed alluded to, Tufts Farm, is just, everything in one little package. That's just a great place there.
Have you seen our
I would like to actually allude to a few more things, but Mickey should go first, but she's had her hand up longer.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I just had a quick question, and this may kind of violate what you were saying about not naming private places, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping over it, but like the preservation of historic landscapes, Langwater, Simpson Springs, Clover Valley. Yeah. Yep. Is there just to think of those as historic? I know most of them are privately owned, but they're also really important to kind of the history and the culture of the town. So figuring a way to work with those folks to really make sure they're preferably preserved.
That's a great goal, and you already put down all the objectives. That's wonderful. Thank you.
There's actually Langwater is only part of the holding of a shall we say a prominent local family. That we've actually, between the Historical Commission and the CPC, we've worked more with that group of people to preserve land beyond Langwater. And it's tough. Years and years ago, when the CPC first got started, we listed our priority properties by name. And
yeah, you can still do that, but I find sometimes people, they get a little defensive about it, and
that's how we found too.
Right. Yeah.
My apologies. I had no idea how else to refer to them, where everybody else would.
Those were fine. That's what I'm seeing in the surveys as well, and they're pretty standard names. It's not like I want to buy Ed Hand's house.
But I have this wonderful natural reserve in the back. My local owl came and ate one of my wildlife creatures the other day, so everything's working great out there.
Well,
could I just jump in with something? If our goal is to go from 30%, we're probably at, to 50%, how does that work with the oft-described position of our town administrator that we need to fund new growth in order to pay the expenses of the town.
Yeah.
And I think that might be something that needs to be addressed in the open space and recreation plan. And
It's definitely a good question, and we're sort of like with wetland permitting, we're looking for that balance between development and natural resource protection, so that it's a delicate balance. But if we don't ask for things and try to achieve it, we won't get anywhere. So it's good to throw it all in there and see how well we can do.
I thought your presentation tonight was very detailed and very excellent. One of the things that seems to be lacking from the original plan, the 2017 plan, was the idea, it's mentioned, I'm pretty sure, but is the idea of those backyard preserves, using the backyard for open space. And I think that's something that could be added. And that's my only comment.
I think we'll be able to offset all these expenses with mutton and wool.
I will let Dan know he needs to get cracking. Use the barn though. Okay, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your meeting. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
When you have, we can certainly send the survey by email so that you have some time to think about your answers. And I'd love to hear from everyone if you're able to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen, and it helps us think about tying the two together, history and and our land conservation. So thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Any comment? No? Thank you, Jen. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Good night.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Wayne?
Yes, sir. We can do the minutes.
Thank you. Everyone?
I approve.
So I hear a motion from Ventresco to accept the October 30, 2024 Historical Commission minutes.
And I think Hans's evil laugh was a second.
That I'm seconding it. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Hurley.
Aye.
Ventresco.
Aye.
Where did we get to? Spencer.
Aye.
Who's next? Hans.
Aye.
Marsh.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
And Bishop.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you all. Ed and I have not done anything on Washington Street. Ed, we need to do this, buddy, at some point, huh? Central Street?
I'm ready anytime. Yeah, I love
right.
walking in the cold.
Yeah, I know. We've put it off to this point. It was too hot when we started, so. And one other thing I spoke to Wayne about, someone brought it up to me today, was down on Purchase Street, just past the golf course, if you're headed to 138 on the left-hand side, I think, is it Raven Road? On the corner of Raven.
I think it's on the right.
Yeah, I don't know which. Yeah, I'm lost as to which side of the street it was on. But anyway, someone brought to my attention that there are still two posts out there, and at once upon a time there was a sign that said the site of Easton's first school.
Yes, I recently wrote a thing for the tricentennial. That's a funny story attached to that. The tricentennial asked the school department, and the school department said, "Well, we don't know anything about our history." So
right, wonderful.
They asked me, and I went out and looked, and there's no sign there anymore. The Conservation Commission put that up many, many years ago. We at one point either paid to have a new sign put up or the original one to be restored, but it's not there anymore. So we need to go out and find the location and put it back up.
So can we, how do we, okay, the cost of the sign, who's going to fund it? The other thing is it something that's going to want to be maintained? Is it just wild and overgrown right now?
Yeah, it's just wild and overgrown. In fact, I would have a difficult time picking one of the two spots that it is. We'd have to do a little research on that.
Okay, all right. So,
but I would suggest the original sign was one of those wooden conservation signs.
Oh, okay.
Has a much limited lifespan.
Right.
I would suggest going to the DPW and paying to have them make a sign similar to, but slightly larger than the ones that we have designating the various historic corners in town.
Sure. Okay.
They seem
Ed,
to
where
do
does,
that quite well.
What's that?
Ed, where does the history room? I thought that was one of the first schools in Easton.
Well, the first school in Easton was supposed to be in 1725. So the town fathers managed to put off paying the taxes on it until 1771.
Ooh.
Yeah, but you had the alternative of paying the fine or hiring a teacher. So they waited each year, and paying the fine was often the winner. And so in 1771, one of the districts in town put up a little schoolhouse. Prior to that, whatever schooling took place was in people's houses. And then in 1793, there was a bunch of schoolhouses that were built. And you may remember that, I'm sorry, Wayne, they asked. There was a schoolhouse about where the Rockery was. And when that was taken out of service, it was built into somebody's house. And we've had discussions about that in the last 40 years that I've been on the commission here. And then the history room was built in 1856, so it's not even the oldest standing schoolhouse, because the one on Howard Street was built in the 1840s. That's now a private dwelling. The history room is unique because it was a big school. The one out on Howard Street really is the size of a house, and that one had two entries. The history room had two entries, one for boys and one for girls. And then you get into the buildings that we sort of remember that have gone out of service in our lifetime.
Thank you, Ed. So I'll try to hit up the DPW to at least put something up there, at least somewhat temporary, just to recognize the place.
Well, I think that might be a nice thing for us to do as part of our contribution to the tricentennial. Restore the site, have a little ceremony, and we just have to make sure we put the sign on the right spot.
Who's we, Ed, when you say we? Historic Commission?
The Historical Commission.
Sure,
yeah.
sure, okay, yeah.
Because, 50 years ago, God forbid that I bring this up, but 50 years ago, we actually did something for the bicentennial. We published a whole bunch of facsimiles of the founding documents of the town, a map, the original map of the town, town charter, inventory of a very early thing. I'm not suggesting we do that, but putting the sign back up would be really cool.
Sure.
Is there a photograph of that school, Ed?
There's a photograph of all the schools that were standing in the middle of the 19th century. There's actually a book. Somebody went out in the early days of photography and took pictures of all these schools. I don't know if that one was still standing or not.
Nice to get a rendering on the sign.
Yeah, that'd be fun, John.
Yeah. We might be able to do that. I'm pretty sure that in one of the books that the Historical Society published, picture books, there's a picture of the sign.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Ed. That's if we have no further business, I would entertain a motion to say goodnight.
Motion to adjourn. Wolf.
Whoa! Mickey's right there.
I'll second.
Okay.
Go.
We have a motion and a second. Wolf, Spencer. Hurley, aye.
Tedesco, aye.
Hands high.
Aye. Oh, whoops. Jinx.
Yep.
And thank you.
Bishop, aye.
Thank you to our recording secretary. This was a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Good holidays, folks. We'll see you next year, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there, everyone.
Woo!
Take care. Bye.
Right.